My name's Wajeed. I head the Global Regulatory Intelligence here at Freyr. From all the information that my colleagues enlisted out, one of the most important aspects that we always, as a domain company, focused on was the data. Let me walk you back on the journey as to where did we start, how did we go about it, and why did we even begin. What data means to Freyr, and how this AI-ready data can be leveraged by GCCs in order to improve their strategic value addition as well as to enhance the operational capabilities. We started in 2014 when one of the largest pharmaceutical companies across the globe had received a query from the MHRA, and it was an audit finding. Finding was very simple: a pediatric dosage regimen that had to be improvised into the dossiers as well as on the label was shared across. However, because it cascaded over multiple departments, right? That's a scenario we all know of. It was left through the cracks, and then they failed to act on it. Freyr was brought in to provide a remediation as a CAPA. And that's where our formal journey towards formalizing regulatory intelligence began. While we were working all across, helping clients across the globe, we started building our own databases in order to make sure that we deliver excellence in a very short period of time. Come 2020, post the COVID era, a lot of these regulations again kept evolving, and a lot of changes in regulations is what we were seeing from the health authorities across the globe. Now that forced us to get into the zone where we wanted to use this particular data set and then provide it to the industry for augmenting the value that they are delivering and to act faster on decisions. Now, one of the biggest challenge that we faced while we were building this up, and after we formalized this in year 2022, there were 4 major reasons why we wanted to move to a complete platform-based system. Number 1, evolving health authority regulations on a daily basis. If you actually look at the NMPA website, there are around 15 different notifications that are actually coming out. Similarly, cascaded to over 120 plus markets, you understand the quantum. While this was happening, technology was evolving at the same time, right? But then with that came the problem of plenty. Many of the clients that we spoke to out there in the market always spoke about a lot of information overload coming onto the end user that rendered their capabilities to effectively act on something that was very important. And language barriers is probably not new to any one of us. There's always a reliance on local resources to understand what a regulation actually meant and how do I get the best out of this. And apart from that, the other area that we were consistently focusing on is how do you improve this data quality in order to make sure that it can be used in n number of places, not only related to regulatory strategy or policy, but even in terms of compliance. Our idea was to create one single platform where you could have this information collated, verified, of course, from the official sources, because even now when we collect this information, we hear there is a 70% of noise coming in on a daily basis. Access to this information was very important, and which is why I think year 2022, advent of ChatGPT, the AI LLM models came into picture. But we were actually working on it way before that, and I'll show you how we actually fine-tuned our models to deliver value. The final thing was, it was not only a platform that helps you monitor regulations or gives you an understanding of what regulation has changed, but your strategic advisor in terms of letting you know as to how you have to act on it and how you have to be prepared for the next gen. Now, fundamentally, when you create a platform, I mean, if it's something that it can be delivered only through technology, it was a very basic or a common thing that we would have expected any large technological organization to carry out. But what we realized over the process was, your system is as good as your data that actually goes in, right? The standard concept of AI, which is garbage in is garbage out, I think that fundamentally started playing in. This is where our domain expertise started coming in, where our experts who were the first users of the system, helped us evolve, helped us understand how better could we actually streamline the system. The first concept was to cover the breadth of the information. With more than 200 markets that many of our GCC partners work and operate in, with more than 1500 plus health authorities who are giving out regulations on a regular basis, with even trade associations coming into the picture where they take an active part in policy framing and making, how do you get to this breadth of an information from various segments, be it pharma or consumer or devices, and at the same time keep up pace with the evolving regulations in topics related to sustainability that's actually playing a key role, shaping the industry the way that we see it as we go ahead. So first area was about covering this particular broad specific information. We had done our own research, we actually put in our own efforts, right from using automated AI bots to having our own resources on the ground in bringing this information. Once this particular area was captured, the second thing that we started looking at it was having this data meant nothing if it doesn't make sense to the end user. The same problem that existed in the industry of information overload was still continuing to go on. So how did we think about this particular concept and how it changed our approach? Our experts who with deep domain expertise helped us realize that information, until and unless categorized at the metadata level, is not going to be useful to the end user in the way that we wanted it to. Now, the way that it helps is, let's say there's a regulation that actually comes in, it's a 100-page regulation. But if it's not tagged at the metadata level to the department it belongs to the area it actually has an impact, and to what it actually means, the entire information would be read by 10 different users, 100 pages over 10-15 days, and at the end of the day, everybody realizing that this actually was not meant for them. So we wanted to make sure that our experts, even before this information actually goes out to the end users, verify and vet this information and even talk about as to how this is going to impact a particular organization. Which is why the concept of experts in the loop that came in, wherein our experts started rendering this information, loads of information that was coming in, and then working on the AI refinement part. When we started building the AI model and then started using it on our data systems, the accuracy was around 40%, and that was abysmally low. And at the same time, we've seen competitors like, let's say, a ChatGPT or something coming up with a lot of credibility, with a lot of accuracy in their own models. So we had to fine-tune our model with the advent of knowledge graphs and knowledge managers. And our experts started working on this particular thing. And today, as we speak, the accuracy is over 98%, by far the largest in the industry. And this is again an information that is vetted by external parties. The third concept after we looked at the quality was the industry asking us, all this is fine, but where is the utility actually coming in, right? I mean, where do I use this information? How do I make sure that things are becoming easy for me and it's just not an addition of an additional system? That is when we started taking an approach of categorizing it into a strategic output versus an operational convenience. Strategic output, how would the system with the data points help us realize or make decisions which can be taken in a very less period of time but has a huge business impact? I'm going to talk about a few of these examples as we go ahead. But on the other hand, for your lifecycle maintenance activities, what kind of regulations are changing out there? How do I keep myself updated? And how do I respond to these regulations in time? What we've realized over a period of time is it's not that regulatory resources do not act on time, but rather are not well prepared in advance considering the quantum of work that is already existing. So how do you proactively be ready in order to make sure that your LCM activities, while you're performing them at that particular point in time, you're well ready with the arsenal of weapons that you need to have to respond to any specific query. Now the fourth point was around connecting the modules, right? Let's say we have multiple departments, and to what Satya was aligning to, generally whenever it's a functional based outsourcing, or let's say when it's a product based outsourcing, there's a lot of in-silo work that generally happens, but with regulations, the concept changes entirely. You need to see the impact of one regulation and how does it flow into the different platforms that you would have within your organization, or how would it impact the various user groups, giving them an opportunity for them to come together and work on it. This was the most difficult part, right? Which is helping the system understand what a user actually meant. Now, for example, right, in this room, if I say the FDA is actually discussing about something that is very critical to so-and-so regulation, the common understanding amongst all of us is that we are referring to the US FDA. But think about the system, right? How would it know that you are referring to the US FDA when you actually mean the FDA? It could be a Thai FDA, it could be a Korean FDA, or it could be the SFDA. For the system to understand this dictionary, for it to understand the connecting points, the aliases, and to make sense of the information that the user is generally asking, we had to create a repository of knowledge manager. And that's again courtesy to the deep expertise that we had in the domain that helped us evolve with a knowledge manager in no time. power that up with knowledge graphs, which is fundamentally a little different than what a knowledge manager is. A knowledge graphs helps a system, helps an AI model understand and can make the connections between the various departments and various terminologies. For a very simple and nascent example, right? Let's say there has been a change in packaging, right? A regulation that has come that impacts packaging. If you ask any CMC expert, they'll probably want to do an analysis on how it would have an impact on the stability and also the CMC3 modules and so on and so forth. But how would you let a system know that for a particular change that's actually coming in, it has to go and understand the areas that can be impacted and then bring out this information so that you guys can take necessary actions. That is the concept of knowledge graph that has actually helped the system deliver capabilities and help it keep it ready for the next generation of automation. For anything that an organization or a GCC wants to do today to accelerate its automation, it's very important that we have AI ready data. Your system is as good as your data. At the same time, it's very important that AI has this AI ready data for it to act on it and then for you to deliver results. With that being said, let me quickly give you a glimpse of what we currently have in the system. Right? It's a 3 V's concept that we have for data. One, the data volume, the quantum which I already spoke about, managing over 200 plus markets across more than 1500 plus health authorities and regulatory groups and associations. The diversity, the variety of the data, right? Different areas of interest, right from CMC to your pharmacovigilance to data impacting labeling to artwork and so on and so forth, across multiple areas of pharmaceuticals, devices as well as consumer. The third part, the velocity, the speed at which the data actually comes in, right? Nowadays we see, whenever we are interacting with our clients, the first question is how soon can you bring this data into the system? And it's a very valid question. You need systems to act fast on it. Across the industry, I think this by far has set benchmarks for bringing in the information as soon as less than 3 business days for tier 1 markets, 5 days for tier 2 and then 7 days for tier 3 markets. And with their own nuances, right? You need to have information that is available both in the local language as well as the source language, and at the same time making sure that this information is thoroughly vetted by regulatory experts before it comes in. And our journey on this particular path continues, right? We haven't stopped at only collecting data at the regulations level. The next level of innovation that's going to come is on understanding how this particular data can be broken down into granular requirements. Right? When I say granular requirements, every regulation broken down at the atomic level for you to have a question and answer response, for you to help you frame what change requirements might be required and what submission requirements are there for me to make a submission in 10 different markets for a minor change variation. How is a change variation classified? How do I make an assessment of multi-markets across for various kinds of assessments, and how do I know what kind of submissions do I have to actually make? Now for this, we've already started working on the models. The information is coming in bulk. Our experts are continuously reviewing and then structuring the data in a format, and at any point in time, we are monitoring and maintaining over 42 million data points. Right? By far the highest in the industry and by far the most comprehensive information that is currently available. Now with all that being said, let me quickly walk you through a brief 2-minute quick demo of how this particular platform looks like and how organizations and GCCs can leverage this particular capability in order to expedite their operations. So this is the Freya Fusion platform that Sudhir and Satya have actually spoken about. It's a very simple user-based login. You have your own credentials to get into the system. Perfect. So this is how the platform is going to look like, right? As you can see on the left-hand side, you have an array of products and the different modules that are available currently in the platform itself, right from your REMS to your submissions to your RTQs. Let's focus on the regulations part for now. As you can see, this repository has over 100k regulations that are currently available in the system, right? And this is how every regulation would look like into the system with multi-filtering capabilities and so on and so forth. Let me quickly show you, give you a very quick glimpse of what a regulation generally looks like and what I was talking about when we have the expert in the loop concept in the system, right? You have a brief little synopsis of what this particular information is about, and then you also have an expert curated synopsis for individual users to understand as to what this information actually means, and if you want to probably delve into it, right? So as you can see, a very crisp written synopsis by the experts. Provided with that, you also have something that validates the information that's actually coming into the system. Every piece of information that comes into the system is coming from an officially vetted health authority website, and at the same time you also have documents attached both in the source language as well as a translated copy of it, so that you don't have to run around for translations all across, right? So if you actually look at this particular tab here, this is a document that is in a language that probably I do not know, it's Spanish. For all I know, and I'm pretty sure there are not too many readers of Spanish in this particular language here, right? It's coming out from a different market, and now as you can see, you also have an English translated copy of the similar version available within the system for you to understand this better. Now, this is also a conventional way of looking at regulations, or probably looking at a database, right? You get into a database, you filter it out by market, and you do a number of things. And that's where our power of AI and automation actually comes into the picture, where we are looking at Freya, which is our AI-powered chatbot, the backbone of the entire Freya Fusion platform, that runs across modules, connects all the modules together, helps you realize or understand which regulation is impacting which particular module. Now let's do a quick snap of it, right? So let me say, I'm going to quickly ask it a question, and then I'll show you how easy it is to access the information. What are the recent regulations of the M4Q? I think M4Q R2 guidelines is something that we all are aware of, that are generally coming up. I'm going to ask the system the same question. So I think the moment I ask this question to it, it's again going through the information that we have in the regulations repository, bringing out information and then responding accordingly. And after that, what you will also see is a follow-up on what else the user would want to probably know about, right? So it's a very conversational chatbot built for the regulatory space. The concepts of knowledge managers and knowledge graph that I was talking about is exactly going to reflect out here. So as you can see, it's going to give you a complete deep summary of where we are using, what we are going to do about it. And for any user, end user who wants to know more about specific details, wants to get a clear understanding of what a regulation might mean or where does it impact, it gives you a complete set of answers. And the best part, it's not just framing or it's not hallucinating. It's giving you responses with key sources or where this particular thing is actually bringing in the information from. As you can see, you will have all the sources listed out right here, and for any piece of information, you just click on that particular link and then you are redirected to that regulation. Now, apart from that, what it also does is it takes a contextual understanding of what else could be important for a user who's new to this particular topic, and then gives you random follow-up questions on this. How will the implementation of this affect my submission? Right? And that's something that fundamentally a user would want to know with every regulation. Now, I ask that question, it's again going to come back with some responses to me. Now, this is just one use case of how we are probably looking at regulations, the way they are evolving and how they can actually get impacted. And tomorrow, when you have information, let's say in a repository in a different platform, or if you have your information in the Freya Fusion platform, these regulations are going to flow into these particular modules, help you figure out and pinpoint the documents and the areas that are going to get impacted by a particular regulation change, so that you do not have to go through the manual and tedious task of assessments and wait for the system to bring this information to you, right? Across strategy, CMC, labeling, compliance, sustainability, I'll talk about a few use cases where our clients are actually using it. When it comes to strategy specifically, right, a very recent divestiture of the largest pharmaceutical company was handled with Freyr as the regulatory partner. Now the questions arose from as simple as being as to what is the cutoff date in a particular market for establishing a new legal entity, to asking as to by what time should I have a cutoff to make sure that this particular information has to be submitted to the health authority before I start placing my products into the market. Now, this information across 120 markets, if you actually look at it, it's very difficult for end users to actually go back and bring this information that could have strategic and business implications. Now, with the use of Freya, with Freyr as the regulatory partner, this information was spread out within a day, right? Just ask Freya about what are the changes or what is the timeline or cutoff in 120 markets, and ask it to pull out a file for you. It exports it out and then gives it to you handy, so that tomorrow you are aware on which markets can you actually go in with a sense of urgency. How do you classify markets in waves where you want to address them depending upon the priority? The other aspect on the CMC part, and this is something in the local markets where we've seen a lot of use cases come up and the utility of our clients being very high. The areas in local markets where you would want to understand what are the minimum requirements, submission requirements, or what are the module 1 changes when you are making a submission in 40 plus markets, you do not have to go to individual consultant or a resource in the market to understand the first level of information. All a user can do is just simply ask the system, bring in this information, get it vetted, and then be ready with the submission packages. We've observed that the timeline for submission actually comes down at least by 50% by the use of this regulatory intelligence information, because the process that generally flows, right, as a user, let's say out of a GCC, asks a local market resource or a consultant in that market for the requirements of submission documents for making a particular change. Now, this particular information routes back to the user again, takes anywhere between 3 to 4 weeks. And after that, you make this particular data package and make a submission. And for all you know, there might be a new regulation that is probably around the corner, and then you want to be ready, and then it goes on in cycle. Anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks is the time that it generally takes. But when you look at this particular system and then you look at the checklist in advance and ask the local consultant or your local resource in that market to vet this information, human psychology suggests that verification of information takes far more lesser time, and a user is bound to respond to it faster than start to build something right from the scratch. Right, so this is something that is currently being used in the local markets, and aligning to what Satya was previously mentioning, right, which was looking for modes of operation in local markets. This is something that has actually delivered tremendous value. Now, apart from that, from quality and compliance, any pharmacopoeial updates that are actually coming in, how many markets is my product actually is currently operational in, and which are the markets where this particular compliance is actually going to have some effect on my product, a detailed analysis of it, and then version comparisons between pharmacopoeias or even standards for that matter. Letting you know what you have to change tomorrow is something that our current set of users are utilizing this for. And most importantly, apart from that, I think sustainability and tracking regulatory policy and intelligence is one of the very key aspects fundamentally where many of our users are towards, especially in the packaging segment, with sustainability coming in, utilizing to see how well can they be prepared for, let's say, for an EUDR regulation and so on and so forth. So one comprehensive system that stems across the various departments and divisions, helping you make strategic decisions at a pace that you would have never imagined. With that being said, I will quickly give a brief summary of our current clients who are already using the platform. The platform has over 2,000 plus users already in a very short span of time, and by the end of this financial year, we expect to see this number actually double up.